Well, good morning. Isn't that a great expression of what moms feel sometimes? What they never say. Hey, happy Mother's Day to you, to all the moms in the room. Hey, we want to celebrate women today. And so, in all of your glory, with all of your talents and gifts, the creative power, how God has made you, we celebrate that today. And we celebrate all women today because we know that you were created in the image of God. And so we just want to celebrate that today. We want to acknowledge that. But I do know that you don't all come with this monolithic momhood. Some of you didn't grow up with a mother in the home. Some of you were raised by grandmothers, grandparents. Some of you are women who have never had kids. Maybe you couldn't have kids of your own. Maybe you were adopted. Maybe you have adopted kids. We all come with various circumstances, but we know this, that God is in the process of redeeming his children. And so we honor you today, moms, women of all cultures, with all different circumstances. Thank you for being a part of our feed today. I want you to know that we love you. I want you to just dive into this main idea with me, will you? It's this idea that uncommon mercy opens the door. I mean, it just throws the door open to spiritual breakthrough. Let me say that again. Uncommon mercy throws the door open for spiritual breakthrough. What I'd love to have you do in the feed right now, what is the biggest spiritual breakthrough that you've had in recent history? Maybe it was a month ago. Maybe it was yesterday. Maybe it was this year. But what is your greatest spiritual breakthrough? What happened? How did God move? Will you type that in the feed, and will you use that just to encourage us today? Because in our text today in Acts chapter 5, what we see is serious spiritual breakthrough. It's Acts chapter 5, verses 12 through 16. So go ahead and turn there right now, because in everything we do, we should be looking for the opportunity to show mercy. And in this passage, the church has just been birthed. Thousands upon thousands of people have come to Christ. And now the disciples are celebrating that great moment, and they're celebrating the birth of the church as they are leading it by showing mercy to all of those who are around them. It didn't matter what their nationality was. It didn't matter what their history was. The disciples are, as you will see in this passage, they are doing some incredible ministry. And I want you to see both the miraculous here today and the practical, because I believe that miracles are practical. It's kind of a juxtaposition. But when God does something great within you, it is so practical and tangible. So let's go to the text today. The church is a little baby. The church is ready to just continue to explode. And uncommon mercy is the fuel that will drive it. It says here in Acts chapter 5, verse 12, "Now many signs and wonders were regularly done among the people by the hands of the apostles. And they were all together in Solomon's portico. None of the rest dared join them, but the people held them in high esteem. And more than ever, believers were added to the Lord, multitudes of both men and women, so that they even carried out the sick into the streets and laid them on cots and mats, that as Peter came by, at least his shadow might fall on some of them. The people also gathered from towns around Jerusalem, bringing the sick and those afflicted with unclean spirits, and they were all healed." I mean, just look at your dog right now, or look at your husband who's with you, and say the word all. All were healed. That means none of them were left out. What we see in this passage is that showing uncommon mercy opens the door for spiritual breakthrough. And I want to encourage you today, because the people who have showed me the most uncommon mercy in my life, and maybe this is true for you, I don't know, are women. Those who have been most merciful to me are women. My mother, my wife, women. Women seem to have this incredible gift to show uncommon mercy, to pause. And so today we celebrate that gift and we look at this passage and we give God all the credit for what he will do through us. Showing uncommon mercy. What does it look like? What does showing uncommon mercy look like? What does it do? Because there's a few specific things that showing uncommon mercy does in this passage that we can learn. And the first thing we see is that showing uncommon mercy enhances credibility. It enhances credibility. It says in the passage that none of the rest dared join them, but the people held the disciples in high esteem. They were transformed by God's power because they held the people in high esteem. When you show mercy, it enhances your credibility. When we look at the scriptures, we see all different types of women, don't we? We see mothers like Sarah, who laughed at God, and then God blessed her at well advanced in years, 99 years old, as she became a mom. And so God shows his mercy to women. Maybe you would identify with Sarah because you are a mother. Maybe you can identify with Ruth and being a widow, being oppressed, but yet being redeemed by God. Maybe you would say, I'm a loyal woman. You could identify with Ruth. Maybe it's Deborah and her leadership. Maybe you on the feed today, if you're watching on Sunday or maybe even after Mother's Day, you are a businesswoman and you are a leader and you have teeth that cut and ideas that rule and reign, and you are a power woman. And I don't say that in a negative context, but that's the gift that God has given you. God has given you as a woman the gift of leadership, and you will go far and far beyond what even others would expect of you. You may even transcend the roles of the culture through your spiritual gifts that God has given you. Maybe you are like Lydia. You are an entrepreneur, a talented businesswoman. Or maybe you would find yourself being like Esther, and you are a courageous woman. I don't know who you identify with, but one of the things, the common threads that we see among these women is they are all merciful. They have the heart, they have the DNA of who God is. My heart for you today and for us today is that we would lean into Jesus, that we would find our identities in who he is. You see, when we show mercy, it enhances our credibility. When we lean into who Jesus is, we care more about what God says about us than what the world says about us. Now, I'm a man, okay? You all see, I'm a man. I'm a boy, trying to figure out how to be a man, right? But one of the things that I've learned about women in our culture is that sometimes they are identified by different things. Like, for example, the shape of their bodies, or the makeup on their face, or a magazine cover that you aspire to be like. I want to encourage you, women who are on the feed today, will you let Jesus speak into you today? Will you let his love define you? May you never be defined by any of those worldly things, but may your character and may the qualities of godliness in your life, may that go forward and be what defines your femininity and your love. You see, a credible woman is hard to find sometimes, and a credible life is difficult to live. But when you show mercy, it enhances credibility. Now, the second idea is this, is that uncommon mercy, as we learn from this passage, it empowers relationship. It empowers relationship. And as we look at this, in verse 14, it says, more than ever. I mean, say that with me out loud. Ready? 1, 2, 3. More than ever. Believers were added to the Lord, multitudes of both men and women. When we become people who show uncommon mercy, what happens is the gospel goes forward because our relational capacity increases. Our relational IQ goes up. People realize this simple idea that they realize that we care. You see, the scripture says that they will know us by our love for one another. You see, uncommon mercy empowers relationship. So where does it start? Well, it starts in our hearts. It starts in our hearts. And then it has a compounding effect. When we show mercy to each other in the church, when we show mercy to each other in our homes, as we deal with one another in marriages, with our children, with our grandchildren, you see, that is when we become strengthened as individuals and strengthened as a church. Showing uncommon mercy, it throws open the door for those spiritual moments of growth and breakthrough. Relationships. Think about some important relationships in your life right now. Are you showing mercy in those relationships? Are you growing in those relationships? Maybe even right now you could write in the feed how a relationship was enhanced by showing mercy. And here's the part that really excites me. The part of the message, it's the best part of the message, because showing uncommon mercy, number 3, it releases power. It releases power. It releases that, what I called earlier in the message, that miraculous power. It says in the passage, so that they even carried out the sick into the streets and laid them on cots and mats, that as Peter came by, at least his shadow might fall on some of them. And so the people also gathered from the towns around Jerusalem, bringing the sick and all those afflicted with unclean spirits, and they were all healed. You see, what was happening in this time is there was so much power, it was thick, the power of the Holy Spirit, that as Peter walked around, they were repositioning themselves on the street, just trying to look where the sun was, and let's put this guy in Peter's shadow, because the power was thick. Now that goes a little bit contrary to what my Bible says about how we should lay hands on the sick, but what I want you to know is that when we tap into a God who is imaginative in the way he releases power, you see, the rules kind of go away. I mean, we need to remember the stories of Jesus stooping down in the mud and playing in the mud and healing the blind man. We need to remember how just the simple words of God can heal someone. We need to remember the imaginative God, the God that is creative. Let God find a creative solution to your problem. Let's let God release his power on us as men and women of God. And I believe that that all starts, the beginning of that all comes when we show uncommon mercy. This week, today, let's look to tap into the creative power of God through showing uncommon mercy. Let's tap into his power. How do we do that? It could be as simple as a kind word. It could be as simple as overlooking the fault of someone else. It could be as simple as this: forgiving someone for something you've held against them for years and years. I don't know what it is for you, but I want you to tap into that power. Let's all rush out into the street, so to speak, and let's cling to the power of God. Let's get under his shadow. Let's see his miraculous healing power relationally, practically, in our lives. The tapes that have been going through our head, may there be broken curses in your mind of what people have said about you. And let me speak especially to women today. My prayer for you is that those curses, those untruths that have been spoken into your life about how you look and who you are and the faults that someone said you have, that those curses would be broken. That there would be resurrected dreams in your life. That God who told you maybe 10, even 20, 30 years ago a dream, that would be fulfilled, not in your time, but in his time. And that you may amplify the powerful presence of God everywhere you go. May you be anointed with the Spirit of God, all because you have the Spirit of God that allows you to show uncommon mercy. I want you to go ahead and type in the feed, which of these are you praying for? the most? Which do you need the most? Maybe it's a broken curse. Maybe you need God to break a curse today. Will you just write, I need God to break a curse in my life? Maybe it's a resurrected dream. Maybe you need God to resurrect a dream that's just been there and you feel like it's dead. Maybe it's a dream of a child coming to know God. Or maybe it's just the powerful presence of God in your everyday life. Will you type that in? And as we worship, will you believe God for that outcome? I'm believing God with you. We celebrate women today. I know God has a plan. You are beautiful. You are created in the image of God. Now let's worship together.